Hey guys, David here at the training center. I'm going to go over a few solo drills you can do on your own to help you improve your jiu-jitsu. All right, our first and foremost, probably our most important drill here is going to be our shrimp. We typically would use this in most situations when we're on our back, playing guard, creating space. We can use this in a manner in which we'd like to retreat or just to create a little more space from our opponent to set up attacks. We can also use it to engage in a manner as well. So it's going to be, we're going to start here on our back in our shrimp, elbows in, hands at center, simply turning to one side all the way to our shoulder and hip, lifting the hip, scooting them back, resetting back to center, and then switching to the other side. And we're basically just going all the way down to the length of the mat. We can also shrimp forward. It's going to be the opposite. So I can use this to sort of as more of an engagement. I'm pulling myself forward, lifting my hips side to side, dragging myself forward. Our next movement here is going to be our forward roll, however you want to call it. Forward roll, shoulder roll, combat roll. Okay, just a nice drill / warm up. We don't typically roll exactly in this manner during jiu-jitsu, but it kind of helps us with kind of our space and timing in our movement. So we'll start in this low stance here. Typically, if I'm going to roll over my left shoulder, I'll lead with that same side leg and hand as I start low and then dive through over the shoulder on the mat. And typically we like to alternate sides as well if you want, if you're comfortable with it. Same thing on the other side, rolling all the way through. Do a couple more for you. Our next movement here, we typically call this like a butt scoot, okay? We're butt scooting backwards, okay? We'll start on one side and we're gonna alternate sides. Typically we'd use this similar to a shrimp to either engage or disengage, creating space from our opponent. So we'll use our backhand to post. If I'm on my right hip, I'm posting with that corresponding hand. And then I have my opposite foot on the mat close to my butt. And then this near side leg, I'm using it as a post to kind of like block, or I can post on my opponent's shin and whatnot. My other free hand is used to grab or block. Just lifting my hips, scooting them back as I alternate sides here. Now I can also do this moving forward. Same thing, just pulling myself. I can use this free hand here to even grab, or if we're in the gi, we can use it as like a collar drag, kind of simulate that, or even use this bottom foot to come in and hook our opponent's feet or legs. Our next movement is going to be our backwards roll, our shoulder roll, rolling backwards. Okay, similar to the forward roll, we're just going backwards over a shoulder. Important things to note is we want to keep our head to one side or the other so we don't roll over our head. We want to gain momentum as we roll backwards. If we're starting from standing, rolling down to our butt, kicking our hips up high, up and over as we turn our head, rolling over the shoulder. Can get back up to standing. Feet up on the other side. We can also do this from a seated position. We just need to create more momentum when we do so. Create more of an emphasis on kicking my feet and my legs up high over my head as I do so. So our next movement here, probably another extremely important drill, is going to be our break fall to stand and base. Okay, You may have noticed that when I showed the shoulder roll backwards, okay? Super important to create a good habit when we fall backwards in breaking fall. And by that I mean rolling to our back. When we fall, we slap the mat behind us, palms facing down, keeping our chin tucked so we don't hit it on the mat here. So our next movement is going to be our break fall to stand and base. Another great drill, solo drill we do here during our fundamentals. Break fall, rock up. I'm going to lift my hips and my legs up off the mat using my opposite hand to foot, bringing this leg back. We can either come to our knee and foot, or if I like to be a little more athletic about it, I'm just going to hop back and get to a sort of combat stance. And then you can just repeat that movement going backwards. You can alternate sides, okay? Our next movement is going to be our Granby roll, okay? A lot like our forward roll or our backwards roll. We're rolling over our shoulders, but we're moving sideways instead. And a lot of people find this difficult. It's not an easy move, but the best way for me to explain it is to pretend like you're touching your toes and balling up, okay? You can either keep your hands under your knees or behind your back, personal preference, whatever's comfortable for you. Tucking my chin, and I'm just rolling sideways. I like to think I'm rolling along a track with my shoulders. So I need to stay up in a ball, curled up in a ball, rolling sideways and lifting my hips up high over me as I continue the momentum sideways. Super good to help you with your inversions or even escaping bad positions. Very common movement in wrestling as well. I like to do a lot of animal movements as well to help our body get used to moving in jiu-jitsu. It's also just great for warming up our body. So this next one is going to be our duck walk. We just get as low as we can to the ground and then walking our knees over our toes here as we walk. You don't have to quite get as low here, but this is a great warm up for your hips. Help activate the whole entire lower body here. And you can even move backwards here. I recommend just going as low as you're comfortably able to, forward and back. And this leads us into our next movement, is our S mount. Typically, S mount is great for setting up arm bars amongst many other techniques. So when I start with beginners here, we start in this kneeled stance. I like to lean forward, place the hand on the mat, turn our body and our back leg in as I sit down to my hips. Then I can lean forward as my legs are in this 90-90 position. Bring my hips up over my shin and swing that back leg forward. And then I'm just going to repeat down the other side here. And then once I start to improve, I can start continuing the movement without my hands. All right, our next movement, another animal movement. Just call it a bear crawl. We're simply getting down to our hands and we're just crawling nice and slow like a bear. That'll lead us into our next solo drill. I call it a baseball slide. It's kind of like a modification between our sit out, and a sit out would kind of just be like this. Okay, it's more of like a wrestling drill. We use it in jiu-jitsu as well, but the baseball slide is a little different in the fact that we use it to simulate a knee cut pass. So I'm gonna start with that bear crawl. I crawl a couple times, and then I'm gonna slide through on my hip, just like I would if I were playing baseball, running to third base. Crawl a couple times, slide through on the hip. Crawl, crawl, slide. Crawl, slide. Our next movement, another animal movement. I like to do a lot of these animal-based movements just to help warm up our core and the rest of our body, help get us ready for jiu-jitsu. call this the monkey hop. I just start on my fists and I hop through. You can also do it backwards if you want to challenge yourself. That one's pretty fun as well. Everyone's favorite. This one's kind of like an old school move it. Brazilians call it the jacaré, alligator. Okay, so we're just crawling like an alligator. Okay, so I got one arm reaching out, one back, and then a leg straight, hip down. My other leg is up towards my hand that's further back, toes pointing out. If you want more of a challenge, you're gonna stay as low as you possibly can, and then we're just crawling forward, one hand, one leg at a time, turning the hip down on each step, or crawl rather. This is also known as like a Spider-Man crawl. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and if you're in San Diego, be sure to come in and train.